Well, if you ever wonder why we don't race sprint cars in the wintertime in Oregon, this is why. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Check out my beautiful backyard track with a little bit of snow on it here behind me. Thought this would be a great way to start today's show. Now, this is beautiful, but unfortunately, snow means it is still the off season for sprint car racing. And that's just how it is here and in probably 95% of the country, like October through end of March. It's just not ideal conditions to necessarily be racing in. It's too wet. It's hard to have a good track. And then also, like, even if we could run a race, who wants to show up when it's like 32 degrees? It's just a no-win situation. So if you ever wonder why we don't really race in the wintertime, it's literally just for the obvious stuff. But then you have crazy people like my family that run outlaw carts and still try to run all 12 months and go and have some fun and run indoors. Which, speaking of that, you guys saw that Carly ran my AT&T outlaw cart this past weekend. I'll link the video to her channel where she posted that vlog. She did a great job. If you want to kind of see how it all unfolded, we had great speed and just put together a pretty solid night up there at the Roseburg Indoor. So we ran Saturday with Carly, and then Sunday came home, worked in the garage in the THR shop to continue building cars and getting equipment ready for our first race of the season. It is Super Bowl Sunday, and we're watching the big game, and we are going to be working on sprint cars. Season's approaching in a hurry. I feel like it's literally right around the corner, and as you can see, there is still plenty of work to be done. We got most of our cars built or close, and I've made a lot of progress. This one right here, though, is our next project to try to get moving on. So we're gonna be working on that a little bit today. I already got the floor pan in. But yeah, we are gonna get going. First race is March 21st, so we have just about 5-ish weeks until we're gonna be hitting the racetrack. In the meantime, we're gonna be working our tails off and just trying to do the right preparation now so we can have success this season and bring home as many checks and trophies back to the shop as we can. I've been saying that lately, that's our goal, but excited, and we're gonna get our hands dirty today and try to move forward. So I'm always telling you guys how important a motor plate is and how it's the centerpiece of a sprint car, so you need to get it on right away during your build. Tighten it down, and then you can kind of work on all the other components and which direction you want to go while building it. So we had the floor pan, then you had the motor plate, and then I like to work my way back. So I have my torque ball, I have the housing, which is already attached to the motor plate. We do that outside of the car, and then after we get the torque ball in, then you can get your actual torque tube, slide that into the ball, and start kind of putting all of that together. Now, while I was doing that, my dad was working on a front axle, which he slid in the front. And then once we got the front axle in, I slid the rear end in. And then it's all about hooking it all together. You take your drive line, which sits inside of the torque tube. That's kind of like what protects it on the outside. And you slide that into the rear end. And then you have to work on getting, there's a little rubber piece and then the snap ring, which slide in behind the spline of the drive line. Get that in so that secures it to the rear end. Then you can slide that torque tube over, which, like I mentioned, protects every or all the internal stuff in there that is holding the sprint car together. Well, the motor plate, housing, ball, torque tube, driveline, and rear end are all in the car. Still got to get our brakes on, and then of course we got to get it squared with our rear arms and bird cages. But we have made a tiny bit of progress, and I think before we do any more work here in the rear, I think we're gonna move up front. My dad finished building the front axle for this thing, so we're gonna get all of our radius rods made up and get this in the proper position. But yeah, everything's pretty standard here in the shop, just building a race car, nothing fancy yet. Just trying to get this thing as perfect as we can here so we can try to win some races with it during 2023. So this is just my personal opinion, but I believe that working with the front axle of a sprint car is much easier than a rear end. There's just less moving parts. It's literally just the axle itself and then the radius rods which hold it in place. And it's easy to change. It's easy to fix one of the radius rods if something gets bent. It's a simple process. So we got that in the car. My dad was working on hooking up the throttle pedal in the linkage. At the same time, I also was able to slide the steering box in, but I am waiting for one of the clamps that holds it in place. But I got it in there and held with the zip tie. And then we moved on to more stuff in the cockpit. We have our master cylinder, which is for the brakes, and that sits right to the left of my left leg. So we got that in there. It's just 2 bolts, tightened it down. And then I also got the shifter cable in, which is to the right of my seat. And you can only put that in when the seat is in the car, or at least with our setup, because we have the halos on top and it's a little bit difficult to get it in through the side. Here's a little bit of a look at how far we got after just a couple hours in the shop today. A lot of things incomplete, but it does look better than a bare frame. And some of that is waiting on parts, and some of that is just more work to do. But all that matters is today at THR, we got some work done. This thing is starting to look more like a race car, and we're just that much closer to being ready to hit the track here for 2023 in the wing sprint car. While we're getting more miscellaneous stuff done here in the shop, we have this outer shell. That's still a good shell, but we're taking the bladder out. Bladder out of this shell, Dad's removing the cap up there, and we're gonna put that bladder in one of our brand new shells for the season.
It's nice and clean. Stick the camera in there.
Nice and clean.
Just washed it out with Simple Green. Get it all clean, so that way it's nice and fresh for the season.
So this next part is probably gonna get a little bit messy. The outside's just a little wet here from washing it out. And then of course you go a whole season with this bladder being in this shell, it just gets filthy. So we're gonna try to get it out and get it all cleaned up. I'm gonna try to crunch this side and that side and then kind of just yank it out. Believe it or not, when you're looking at these two items, this is the expensive one and this one is much cheaper. Just to repeat myself though, like I said, this one is still good. We're just kind of putting it on the shelf for now. So here's our new one. Just blew out the inside of this, tried to remove any grit or anything that could have possibly got in there while they were painting. Well, not too bad. This thing's nice, freshly painted. Got the cap on the front here, and we just have to do the top later. Well, since we do have a snow day, you guys saw that work in the shop. I'm probably gonna head down there now. Gonna try and stay busy as the start of our season is right around the corner. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button to help us get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And keep your hands held tight because we don't got much more time. Everything will clear up and we will be outdoor racing before you know it.